there's kind of sort of two categories of planters that I sort of encountered, and there's people who are very fast, like they probably have the sort of the speed gene, like maybe it's just physical or whatever, but they can go really fast when it's good, but then tough land or tough conditions will really slow them down. And then there's other people who are much more steady, and we called it grinding, right? Like if you're a grinder, you're really
you like that
probably have
stuff.
less high of a ceiling, right? When the land is perfect, your numbers aren't exploding, but when you hit tough land, you have a much lower floor too.
So you're more steady, I guess.
Yeah, those and so there's sort of those people, and then your true highballers grind and pound. So when the land is nice, they fly, and when the land is bad, they never slow down either.
That's what I'm going to call this episode: grind and pound.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's cool. Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome to Your Forest. I'm Matthew Christoph. On this podcast, we talk about environmental sciences and just try to sort of figure out what sustainability looks like, how we can manage our landscapes for the future, you know? And today's episode is with Wilson Sihlis, and he is a silvicultural forester for West Fraser, their mill in near Whitecourt, Blue Ridge Lumber. And he spent about 10 years doing tree planting and 5 years doing tree planting, 5 years being a foreman, and really got into, that lifestyle. And then he got into the forestry side of it. So the more planning aspect of it and why we do what we do when we're planting and where we do it and how we grow trees back and all that kind of stuff. So I brought him on. First of all, first 40 minutes, we talked about tree planting. We just talked about what that looks like. Is it romanticized? What's it like? Is it really hard? Is it easy? Is it a lot of fun? Is it for everyone? All those questions you probably already have the answer to intuitively, but it's, it was just he gave a really good account of what tree planting is like, the type of people that get into it, why they like it, that kind of stuff is really, really cool. And then the last 45 minutes, we talked about silviculture and started to talk about why they do certain things on a landscape to try and promote certain trees, why they plant certain trees, why they leave for natural, a bunch of different stuff like that. So it was really great conversation. Wilson's a great dude. He's got a great perspective on, the whole process from planning to the tree planting to, everything. So it was awesome. It was really great to have him in, and you guys are going to like this conversation. I promise. It's good. And sponsors for this week: Greenlink Forestry, one of the original sponsors. Couldn't thank them enough for supporting me in the beginning. Thanks a lot. And continuing to support me now. So, yeah, awesome. And Damage Timber. Damage Timber is a apparel company out of Edmonton. They are supporting environmental sciences through the sale of their clothing. Go to damagetimber.com. They put 10% of all their sales towards an environmental sciences scholarship. So, by buying their clothes, you can support environmental sciences that way. And they make really good stuff. Best quality stuff, really cool hats, toques, t-shirts, hoodies, all that kind of stuff. Check it out. Put in Your Forest 10 at checkout and you get 10% off. And last but not least, as West Fraser. West Fraser is the most important sponsor I have for this year. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do this in 2019. Thank you so much for the support and, supporting sustainability and good forest stewardship, right? And they're great that way. I mean, they just like a lot of the forest industry, they're constantly pushing innovation and trying to strive for better management. So I appreciate their support in getting this podcast made. Thanks a lot, guys. And without any further mess around, let's get into it. Wilson and I talking about tree planting into silviculture and all kinds of little dirty bits in between. So let's do this. I was thinking an interesting way just to get the ball rolling or whatever. How many trees do you think you've planted in your life? Personally, not that you've overseen, but ones that you've put in the ground. Yeah,
I think I am probably around 500,000 myself.
I was doing the math on it. I figured to be at least, if you're any good at your job, you probably would have got 300,000 minimum.
Yeah, maybe more. Yeah, maybe 350 to 400,000 would be my number.
Yeah.
Because I started in high school, I planted a few half seasons.
Okay.
So I didn't plant 5 full years, but then I also planted, probably 100,000 trees over the course of being a foreman as well. So I'd probably be around there. Yeah.
That's insane. You think about that number, right? Like that's we'll round to 400, right? 400,000 times you've bent over, put a shovel in the ground, moved the dirt, and tossed in a seedling, right?
Yeah.
Like that's freaking bananas, man.
Yeah, I definitely, I always liked planting. I really enjoy the mechanics of it and kind of the sport side of it, and I've always, it really is a very interesting mix of athletics and industry, it's kind of like harkens back to the old time jobs of, when it was very, it's a high, like being a job that is very sort of a working class job, but very high skill labor at the same time, right? It's like the kind of the old like saw filers or loggers with that were working with axes or people who could break rocks like nobody's business. It's kind of a very something that takes a fair amount of skill, and you can really see the it's an amazing sort of marathon, but impressive physical feat, but also kind of a mental one as well.
For sure. What attracted you originally to getting into tree planting? Because I don't think it's something that a lot of people, I mean, everyone knows about it, right? We know what happens, but everyone sees the tree planters, coming through town in a small town every year, and they, unshowered, looking pretty dirty. Everyone kind of looks down on them. You know what I mean? Because it's just kind of an easy judgment call to make, right? So, what attracted you to that job?
Yeah, it's kind of it's a very like still word of mouth, who kind of thing.
Sure.
Generally, how people get into it. So I'm from Tofield, like I'm from farm country, outside of Edmonton. Grew up in a small town, and like forestry wasn't really a part of growing up for me, so I didn't know anything about it. I had never met a tree planter that I knew of, I don't think.
There you go.
Once I got the job, people started saying like, oh, I planted, or my niece planted this and that, and I just had a connection. My teacher in high school's fiance was a foreman, so he was taking another guy out, and I was going to go along with him, and then he dropped out, so I just went off on my own at 15. And
15. Okay. Yeah, so you could there's no age limit. You can do it at like 14 as soon as you're allowed to work type thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's not very common, just because by that point by the time you're out of high school, only July is left, and the planting season is pretty much in Alberta is mostly May to July, in the interior. It's just a May to July thing. By August, it's sort of too late in the season for the trees to get established. So that only gives you a month of planting. So it's not very common for people to come out at that age, but it worked great for me. I got a few summers of work in, and but by that point in the summer, usually a tree planting crew is putting in so many trees that one rookie can't do any damage, right? It's a bit of a percentage game. So when you're on a crew that's doing 40 or 50,000 and you plant 1,500 rotten trees, it doesn't really sink the block. So it gives you a lot, gives you a lot of time to mess around. And
that's a day we're talking.
Yeah.
It's a day. So it's an interesting one, because like me, I grew up in like northern Alberta, so tree planters were like a regularity, right? Luckily, I didn't really have that perception of like tree planters being like dirty hippies or whatever, only because my parents were foresters and I had that understanding. And both my parents actually planted trees as well, right? But I remember growing up and having every summer around that time, right? You'd have the tree planters come back, and like my friends or even adults, and you hear people just like talking shit about these tree planters, right? Like, look, they don't, like, be careful, like hide your stuff, put your stuff away in your vehicle because the tree planters are coming through. And it was like, what? Yeah. Why do we think that? They're not homeless people. Like, they're making this conscious choice to do this work, and this is you know what I mean? There's no showers in the bush. That's just the way it works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of funny. But it's interesting that you had that tie to that. So where were you planting originally? Like what part of the province?
Well, when I first started planting, I was in around Hinton
Okay.
for the first, probably would have been the first year that it was a West Fraser mill, but we still called it Weldwood at the time.
Right.
And so that was my first contract, was there. And then
It's a nice spot to be doing it. Lots of pine and lots of just kind of.
Yeah, a nice land for sure. And then I planted in BC for my next 2 Julys, I believe, sort of around Vanderhoof, that area.
Yep.
And then for the majority of my career, I sort of worked we would generally be in Kamloops for May, like they'll get a nice jump on it there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we would work around Cochrane for Spray Lakes.
Okay.
And then I worked for Miller Western in most of doing
getting
the July summer plant. So we jumped around a bit, and then other places I worked Williams Lake one spring. I worked around Prince George a bit in the summer. Up Bear Lake, did a reclamation job in like north of 6 hours north of Mackenzie.
Okay,
on a gold mine. Yeah, so
that's cool.
Got to jump around a bit and
see some different
covered
country.
some different country. Yeah, I never worked like a lot of people will talk about the high level planting, like that far north stuff is pretty common. They put in a lot of trees up there. And then I didn't actually work a ton in the classic like Prince George area, but that which is where sort of the heart of the planting industry is based, sort of based on its origins or tend to be in that area. So
okay, I didn't
the
know
professional, like the planting at the scale we do it now is pretty much like through the 50s and 60s and early 70s, they would do some planting, but they were logging a lot of nice blocks generally. So the original reforestation was mostly drag scarification. Yeah. And then when planting sort of got more popular, it would have been the late 70s. I think there was a massive cut between McBride and Prince George. I don't know if you've seen that. I can't remember what it's called, but it was due to some sort of bug outbreak. They did this enormous cut, and then I'm not sure why exactly it was planted, but that was sort of the start of the planting industry at the industrial scale. Right. And those companies are all just based in Prince George. So
that came from a realization, I think, that it was that conifers weren't coming back and we were getting just hardwoods coming back in the landscape.
Yeah, they were definitely getting and then probably transitioning into the not just the driest and nicest sites, getting into more maybe and having more regulation as far as not just high grading all the nicest sites, logging everything at once. So
now you're getting into the stuff that like
a little more marginal sites where trees aren't just going to spring back on their own.
Right, for sure. No, that makes sense. So what, if you were going to describe to somebody what tree planting's like, which I'm sure you've done at cocktail parties and wherever else, because I feel like there's two perspectives of it, right? Like there's the romanticized perspective, which I imagine you probably share because seeing as you did it for so long, you're probably into it, you probably enjoy it. And then there's people who tried it one summer, thought it was the worst thing they've ever experienced and will never, ever go back to it, right? Yeah. So, give me your perspective. What is that lifestyle like? Kind of what does it entail, and what's the allure? Right? What keeps bringing you back?
Well, it definitely is a good money job.
If you're good at it, because it's production, right? You get paid per tree.
Yeah, so it's all pretty much universally piece rate, paid per tree. Some places pay per hectare. There's odd time when you'll be on a day rate, for this or that, but that 99% of planting, I would say, is paid out by tree. And but as far as jobs you can get where you don't need any sort of training, it pays well, even just middle, like the average wage would be pretty good. Okay, so it can be.
What are you paying right now for a tree? Like, what does Blue Ridge pay for a tree?
From the mill side, I mean, to the company, it's probably about 30 cents average
that they pay out to the consultant.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. To the company. And then I think planters we've kind of just gone through a little bit of a readjustment in prices. There's been a big, due to the fires and sort of some factors in BC, especially, they've been, it's been kind of a crunch on planters right now. Okay. So there's just been a jump in prices, but I'd say your sort of average tree price now is probably 12 to 14 cents.
That's what you get paid.
Yeah.
As a planter.
Yeah. Okay. It was really sitting steady around 10 cents for a long time.
Okay.
10 to 12 cents.
Jumped up a little bit.
For, like site prepared and then raw ground is usually, a few cents higher, but
Okay.
that'd be pretty standard. I don't know everywhere, like especially now that being on what the company pays to the planting company.
Yeah.
From the mill side, I have a limited experience. So
Yeah, for sure.
Been
No,
doing
I'm
it
just
for a
trying
year,
to get a gauge
yeah.
for it, right? So people
Yeah,
understand.
so it's about I'd say probably 12 to 14 is pretty average Alberta price.
Gotcha.
Maybe a little bit higher than that even.
Cool.
So you're generally looking at the average planter is probably 2,000 to 3,000 trees a day.
Okay.
On most ground.
Yeah.
And then there definitely are fast planters who are doing 4,000 or 5,000.
Right.
That requires fairly fast. It's
You got a system.
Circumstances have to be set up right as far as having when you start to deal with that much area, like with that many trees, you just sort of run into a little bit of a space constraint almost. Like you can't give people enough room in a day to plant that many trees because we plant at 1,800 to 1,600, 1,200 sometimes stems per hectare. So you end up with, needing 3 or 4 or 5 hectares of land, and that's
per person. Yeah.
Yeah. And that could, it's tough to have kilometers of,
especially in
area
straight
to work
lines,
with.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like
exactly.
a cup block is they're not rectangles anymore, right?
No,
they
they're not
follow
big
the natural
rectangles,
curves of the
yeah,
earth. So
exactly.
yeah, for sure. So yeah. Anyways, that was a bit of a sidetrack. But getting into planting, what's it like?
Oh, what's it like?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very hard work. It's very communal as far as your crew sort of becomes your family. Your camp is definitely like a little community out there. It's a lot of fun. Like I always enjoyed the lifestyle of it. It's very you generally work three days on, 1 day off, 4 days on, 1 day off. So your weeks are completely out of sync with the regular world. There's no you have no idea what's going on.
Not a lot of cell phone service, probably most places.
I mean, that's getting better. Like I'd say most camps have internet in camp now.
That's almost
it's become
too bad.
pretty common. Yeah, I mean, it definitely in the early days you were even more isolated, but we also used to do almost all 5-in-1, so you were really out on an island there and then you'd come in for your 1 day and it's it's very rhythm. You get a very nice rhythm out there where it's wake up, eat, plant. And when you're planting hard, time really does fly. So, and you're back home and you're back in camp, relax a little bit, and then go to sleep, do it the next day, and just days and days of that. And then you'll have a day off, and it's usually just laundry, junk food, recovery from the festivities, and then you're back in camp, ready to go for the next day. So, time really flies. Generally, a planting camp will move 2 or 3 times in a season.
Okay.
Between provinces.
And
that's
roughly a 2-month time frame every year.
Usually 3 months.
3 months, okay.
I'd say 2.5 months probably.
Okay.
And it really does draw a wide group of people. It has as far as being a high paying seasonal job like that, it draws people who kind of want to live a certain lifestyle. So you'll get some people who are plant every summer, put together 4 or 5 months of planting, and some seasonal work, and then they're in Thailand all winter, and then it's a great university job. So that's the pool, right, of people who come out and are just there to put. Every box that goes in, they're thinking about rent in February. They're thinking about tuition, right? So, and they're paying for everything that way. So, it's a wide mix of people from all over that are.
So, paint a picture of like camp. What's camp like?
Yeah. So, people sleep in tents, like regular camping tents, like 2-3 man tent is pretty common. What everybody's sleeping in. Sure. And then. So there'll generally be a little tenting area, and then You'll have some sort of mess tent, typically like a large weather haven.
Okay. So like a ranger tent deal, canvas tent for eating.
Yeah, like
okay.
a big tent with folding tables and shit, and like plastic lawn chairs in it.
Right.
Usually,
something that's quick to put up, but also can hold some heat in, keep you away from the weather. You can stand up in it.
Yeah. It'd be a big Quonset style weather haven type thing, and then there's usually most camps have a kitchen trailer, so it'll be like a little industrial kitchen on that hooks up to a pickup, and you can pull it around still.
You hire a contractor to make food, I'm assuming, probably for everyone, right?
They'll have most camps have they're hired by their cooks.
Right.
Yeah, those would be usually 2 cooks in a camp cooking for 30 to 60 people, 60 to 80 sort of like.
Yep.
So a camp would be range from 30 would be a fairly small camp to 80 would be like quite a large camp. And then your crews are usually less than 20, down to only like 1 pickup, like maybe 5 planters and a foreman.
Sure.
You'll have a shade tent in the area with your trees that come by semi-truck.
Right. But it's a lot of I think for a lot of people, they think of like, oh, you're out camping in a tent. That sounds awesome. Right. And it's just like, it's more camping than what most people ever think of as camping.
Yeah.
Right?
It's funny. Well, in Alberta, when you'd say I work in a camp, people think ACO trailers, right? And it's not a rig camp. It's much more mobile. Yeah. And because you have to move around, right? Yeah. You're not out there or in a logging camp where you are in one place all winter, right? Yeah. So it's usually breaks down small enough to go into one semi-trailer or just into all the pickups that are there. So everything has to break down fairly small. So it's a lot of like semi-permanent tents, right? That are big. So there's usually a dry tent where they'll have like a Frostfighter style propane torch to dry your stuff after a rain day. Is usually some sort of first aid tent.
Imagine this year people were probably hurting pretty bad with the rain.
It's been it was funny because we were on complete like ATV ban, terrified drought all spring, and bone dry dust clouds like up to the sky, and then monsoon June hit, and it was just just a nightmare. So
we've had like maybe 5 or 6 days of full sunshine.
It's been we've been we really got swamped. It's been pretty crazy. So
for sure.
And that's definitely a huge part of it. The weather just really dictates your life when you're out there for a summer. It's
if you're somebody who likes the comfort of home, you're not gonna enjoy this.
it's bugs for sure. It's being out, waking up. It's difficult to explain to someone how demoralizing it is to wake up and hear the rain on the tarp that's over the tent, and when it's hard and it feels like it's been raining all night, and you just know it's gonna be raining all day. For some reason, somehow that's just all day that's gonna be on your back. By the time you get back, you're gonna get in your tent. It's gonna be raining still,
and it's still wet. It's not like you get into your tent. It's dry. It's like that stuff. It's just the humidity just gets in. Everything's damp.
Everything's
wet
damp.
And cold,
for sure.
And it's just like you have to have a real desire to want to be out there in that, right? Like
yeah. So I mean, that's really where the crew side of it comes in. Yeah. That you as a crew, you build your plan around everybody contributing, and so when somebody is out there and really lets the team down, they're having a bad day and they don't get out of bed for no reason, or they're out there and they don't do their numbers, it really throws a kink in the whole system. And so that's a big part of the motivation is when the plan starts to break down, then everybody's out of sorts, and when the plan isn't working, then people are standing around and everybody knows they're not making money, right? So that's a big driver is that team dynamic when you're out there, and your crew, and how you're working together as a crew, and then the competition is the other side. It's competitive, right? Everybody talks about their numbers.
Yeah.
Some camps go as far as putting the tallies up on the wall every day, or they'll put the best number for the day up on the wall.
I like that.
Yeah, so it has that sport feel
Right.
of it's a race through the summer, pretty
Friendly
much
competition.
every camp pretty much has they'll give out t-shirts for hitting milestones like 100,000 or 150,000 trees in a season. You'll get some sort of milestone for that, and then being the baller of the camp, balling the day or balling the whole season is a pretty it's like
I feel like Superman probably.
Yeah, exactly. And there's that so there's a good healthy competition for sure.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting. I imagine I would probably really enjoy it because I have this weird thing where I appreciate suffering.
yeah, for sure.
I don't know why. Like I find that there's two different types of fun, right? There's the fun, there's like going on a roller coaster, right? Where you're just like, you enjoy it at the time, but you never look back on it and go, roller coaster was a good time.
Yeah.
Then there's the stuff you suffered through in the rain and cold and wet with friends. And at the time, it kind of sucked, but you look back on it and you're like, man, that was awesome. We should do that again. I don't know what that is. We're as fundamentally broken as human beings.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But it's a cool little community, right? That like everyone's kind of out there together and you're away from society. I think like what I was saying before about like the cell phones, right?
Yeah.
Like now that you've got starting to get Wi-Fi, I wonder, do you find that takes away from that atmosphere of like communal working together and maybe fuels more, I don't know, discontent in camp? Because I feel like that's part of it, is you're almost like you're almost a whole group in a trance, probably, right? Going through this thing together.
Yeah, you do get I've heard some chatter like among management who are more my age or like been doing it for a while, sort of remember before that happens, or when there was really little communication, that there's definitely less hanging out around the fire, maybe because people are, especially on like a work night, people are happy to just hit their tent and look at their phone and talk to people back home or whatever.
I wonder if
but it also has given rise to like a pretty healthy online planter culture where people are talking about it all winter long. They're talking about planting, and then all summer they're sharing where they are and stuff that's going on. So I think it's been a double-edged sword as far as
pretty much always is, right? Every situation we talk about the internet, it's always a double-edged sword.
So when you're there and you see your friends and they're all just like, it's the long weekend and all your friends are at the cabin back home and they're out around the fire and you've been out in the rain and the black flies all day. It probably adds to a little wanting to go home, but when you're having a great time and your crew is doing, you're sharing what's going on, sharing your experience, I think, and people are saying like, wow, I can't believe you're out there, or I can't believe you're, got to fly in a helicopter today, this and that, right? You get, you probably experience the perks of being able to share.
It's
it
managing
too, right?
your own mind, I guess, right? Like it's just, it's up to you to manage your own self. If you find yourself getting sad, maybe put the phone away and go hang out with the people you're around, right? And enjoy that culture and that situation. It's pretty unique, right? Like I think, do you find like when you're out planting, right? Like on a good solid day, or like you're really in the zone, right? You're hitting your stride. Do you find it almost meditatory, like almost like meditation going through those steps, or is there, or what? Like how would you compare it?
Yeah,
I always imagined it as almost when you really find your stride, you almost get into like a meditation where your time kind of flies, right? But
you can.
I've never really done it. So.
Yeah. I think there are days like that, but it's not quite to plant well. You are doing so much math and spatial awareness and thinking as you go.
Yeah.
That it's more like you could probably get a little bit of like a runner's high at the end of the day. So, and like hitting a big number can kind of give you that like runner's high type like euphoria where it's like oh, like, I've just been so much exertion at the end of the day. You feel great. Like, $400 day, like that's a great feeling. But when you're actually out there working, I think it's more like that time is flying because you're so focused on it that it's
Right.
a blur, right? And you look back and you're just like, wow, this, a
Yeah.
good day, you were never waiting around. You're at the cache for 5 minutes at a time, just chugging water and eating a banana and back in the land,
Yeah.
So it has a feel probably more like what it feels like to be on like an 8-hour hike, where
Okay.
it's or on a long run where you're like
Yeah.
you're not coasting enough to be like in a trance,
Right.
it's like you're all day you're kind of going that at the end of the day you feel very physically tired but also very mentally tired just of being like to keep going you have to be thinking like pace all day and you're thinking 22-minute box, 23-minute box,
Right. So it's really not like
box.
a comfortable pace. You're really pushing yourself to make that money.
If you're having a really good day, it's a lot more of like how much can I do? Like that section in the back of the piece is bad. I'm gonna hit that right now and do it all, and then my next 2 boxes are gonna be nice straight lines, and you're because there's a lot of thinking and planning and then keeping up that kind of pace because your natural pace would be too slow to do those kind of numbers. Or for me, it was like
for sure
to go fast. I had to think about
make it
going
worth
fast.
your time.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you find it easier when you were going faster to push through the day? Like pushing yourself. I find for myself whenever I'm doing something, if I'm pushing, I find the day goes by faster. I enjoy myself more than going slow and like, you know what I mean? If I find you can start to get bored and start to look around and kind of get distracted, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like you definitely, the day is a nice quick productive day is when you're going fast and a lot of it's out of your hands in, like the stuff that disrupts you is because quad breaks down and there's nobody to run trees or
it's crazy muddy. Your boots weigh 10 pounds a piece from all the clay.
And you're just so, or the piece is miserable and it's always better to work hard and get through it. And there's kind of sort of 2 categories of planters that I sort of encountered. And there's people who are very fast, like they probably have the sort of the speed gene, like maybe it's just physical or whatever, but they can go really fast when it's good, but then tough land or tough conditions will really slow them down. And then there's other people who are much more steady, and we called it grinding, right? Like if you're a grinder, you're really
You like that
probably have
stuff.
less high of a ceiling, right? When the land is perfect, your numbers aren't exploding, but when you hit tough land, you have a much lower floor too.
So you're more steady, I guess.
Yeah, and so there's sort of those people, and then your true high ballers grind and pound. So when the land is nice, they fly, and when the land is bad, they never slow down either.
That's what I'm going to call this episode "Grind and Pound."
Yeah.
No, that's cool. Cool. It's always fascinated me. Like I've been in and around tree planter camps, but never for long. Like just like for an hour or 2 here and there, kind of that kind of stuff. Right? Nothing serious. I've never been into it.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to talk to somebody and get it's kind of what I thought, but it's the community and that kind of stuff seems like it's an important factor for sure. Yeah.
I mean, and there are none of this stuff is universal necessarily because there definitely are. My planting experience was I was only did summers. I worked interior BC and Alberta, so it's pretty middle of the ground. There are some places. Ontario has a different culture. Coastal BC has a different culture, right? So, some places on the coast, your average planting experience might be 10 years. You work on a barge. You work February to November. It's like a 6+ month season.
Okay.
So there and people might be working from home, right? They might live on the island or they live in town and they're full-time planters. They're 45 years old, right?
Oh, that's cool.
So, and that can be,
I bet those people got some stories.
Yeah, definitely. And it's high price, low production. So it's 800, 1,000 trees a day, 1,200 trees a day for 50 cents or $1 a tree.
Right.
So
just because it's so steep.
Yeah, steep, and there's the slash that's out there is cedar trees that you have to
get a ladder,
walk around or
Yeah.
throw your shovel over top of, right? So it's just a lot slower paced.
For sure.
So it's more amenable to doing it for a long period of time.
Right. That makes sense.
A lot more technically skilled, right?
Yeah.
So it's less hard on your body for sure.
Mhm.
And then as a result of that sort of situation, they also work 9 to 5 hours. You know, you're going to be back home, and and it might be because people are working from home. So they might have kids. They got to go.
It's more sustainable. You can do it for longer.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
you don't have this this wild temperature shift that we do in like northern Alberta, right, where it goes from plus 30 to minus 30 throughout the course
There
of
it
the year.
goes, 8 degrees and raining all the time.
Yeah, just steady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then so there's a different culture there as far as like, I imagine it's people aren't aren't drinking, aren't doing the like, and they go home at night, right? It's like it's not summer camp for them.
It's not
right?
as much of a party afterwards.
It's full time.
It's
right?
more of a job, like a career.
Yeah, for sure. So there's that, and then there's the other extreme is there's some. I never planted in Ontario, but I had a fair number of Ontario planters come in. We have camps like that here but you're looking at 95% turnover every single season.
It's just so hard.
Yeah, they have
Black
a
flies.
they have a
Yes, black
huge
flies.
and they have a huge labor pool
Yeah.
to draw from, right? When you draw from the GTA, right? So they can bring out a massive number of rookies every year, and then the planting's pretty simple, like really large cut blocks, black spruce swamps, right? So they can get people trained up very quickly, and they've sort of settled on that as the economic model that works for them is
No one comes back.
bring out tons of people, and it's like, and then they move on. They come out here looking for more money, and as a result, they've got sort of a situation where the party culture is a huge draw. That's how they get people out. Is like, come out and work and make some money, but we have all these amenities. Like we have like the supervisors are party planners too.
Yeah.
Right. To make this like a super fun summer. And then they get some returners, they do get returning vets. But some of them are basically counting on big turnover every year. So
what's the romantic story? What's the side of it that keeps you, like, when you tell yourself why you keep going back there, right? When you talk about all this, like, is it just the competitive side, or is there more going on there, do you think, for some people?
Yeah, there's definitely people who I think that community is and like there definitely is a part of the planting world that's still very like a very bohemian, or like there are lots of hippies out there still, for sure.
There's a lot of ganja.
And they like the living outside the box and getting off the grid and doing that. So for some people, I think it's just like, they want to live in an artist house in Victoria with 10 people all winter and then go tree plant in the summer. And it's like, you can make, semi-professional money in a short span and still live that lifestyle. Right.
Is that connection to do you think that connection to nature and to the forest is a deep part of it, or do you think that's kind of a secondary part that just kind of helps with the atmosphere? And I think some
people like it. Like people definitely like getting outdoors and seeing it, but
of course,
when you're just in cut blocks and then all day and then sleeping in a gravel pit somewhere, you don't get as much nature as you think. That's probably one of the things that draws people that tends to get dispelled actually when people come out planting and they're because they really want to have like a natural experience.
Be in the wilderness. Yeah.
That's kind of a red flag as to if they're going to survive or not, because it's you will get a lot of people who come out thinking that's what it's going to be like, and then it's head down in the needles all day, and then.
I mean, you are in the middle, especially in northern Alberta, right? Like you are in the middle of the bush. For sure. You're in the middle of the bush, but you're also grinding hard, and you're on. Yeah, you're probably camped close to a road that's like probably muddy most of the time. And it's you know what I mean. So it's. I think a lot of people's idea of wilderness is not. You know what I mean? I think most people go to Jasper and they go, "Oh, this is wilderness, right? This is so nice. The recreational forest, right?" And they go, "This is what it's like. I want to be more of this." And you're like, "Well." you get into the real wilderness where the people haven't been, right? It's a totally different thick bush deal, right? Like it's a different story. I think people get taken off balance. Don't expect that, right? So it's not as romantic as they would think. But I mean, I think the difficult part of it, right? That grind that you're talking about.
Yeah.
For me, at least, when I think about like spending long amounts of time in the outdoors away from my cell phone and kind of just in the bush dealing with whatever we're dealing with, there's a much deeper connection there to that kind of to that nature, that natural wilderness area, right? So I know, but it's harder to quantify, I guess, right? It's not like there's pretty views, and it's the little things, right? Like you wake up for me at least, you wake up when the sun comes up because it shines through your tent, and you can. I don't know. You hear stuff, and those little moments, right? It's not like the whole day you're just in bliss in the environment, seeing Bambi jump by and all this kind of stuff. But it's the little things that just make you feel. I think it's almost like a respite from the chaos that is our society, right? Yeah.
There's definitely
a psychological respite, I should say.
It does. Teaches you a lot about what you're capable of, which I definitely liked, and as you know, especially foremanning where it's
that's being in charge of the planters.
Yeah, so running a crew and your job is more or less management. You tell people where to go, come up with the plan for the day, and then I'll run trees. You're on the quad, running trees pretty much all day and
running the boxes to the planters,
taking the boxes from the truck out into the block. So. And it's a lot more stressful, and it's a lot more of long hours. Like you're out running at night, the night before, and on the day off, you're go.
Probably a lot more moolah though, I would imagine.
It can be. Yeah, when stuff goes wrong, some places are run where crew bosses make day rate and some work on commission. So I always worked on commission. So it's very like, you got to, motivation. Yeah. On the bad day, you just got to like, you're going crazy trying to get everybody up to speed and working hard. And when the plan works out,
cheerleader more than anything.
yeah, you do that. And then, sometimes you just, there's nothing like, when it's snowing and it's miserable, all you can do is just take off your shirt and run around and, go crazy to get people, pumped up. And sometimes it's
dancing naked in the snow.
Exactly. Yeah. And then sometimes it's just a matter of, and then there's like having the perfect plan come together and moving, 15 people working at different rates and with different sizes of land. And then you got limited access to where you can put the boxes, and having, that all those moving pieces and having it come together where everybody works hard all day and moves to 3 different pieces without losing an hour. It's like,
it's cool.
Very rewarding when that happens. And then the other thing is there's just something about, as far for your earlier question, just about like what draws you out there. I think due to the deprivations of working hard and it being out in the elements all day, there are some things that are so good, like eating a McFlurry on a day off. Like I'll never eat a McFlurry that tasted as good as one did on those days off, right?
Yeah.
Or like one of these shifts where it's just plus 30 all day, every day, and it's just sweltering and you're just dust everywhere. When you get to just sit in the evening on the night off and drink a beer, it's just like,
little things. They're very
so
blissful.
good. Yeah.
It brings you back to reality, right? It puts into context what these things were made for, right? And what really is good, right?
Yeah. Oh, it really is like the contrast of how bad the conditions are and how hard you're working makes these pleasures like so good that when you look back on it, you tend to just remember like, oh, I remember sitting outside the laundromat, drinking that slushie, and it was the best thing ever. Yeah,
or a couch,
exactly.
Just sitting on a couch, something that hugs your body.
Coming inside, and at the end of the season, coming back to civilization and sleeping inside, it was so great. It felt great. Yeah,
I often thought that that tree planters might undergo what might be happening is a lot of psychological conditioning, almost like a
Yeah.
Stockholm syndrome
It is,
situation,
for sure.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, do you actually love this, or
Yeah.
are you just being held hostage
Right.
by your mind?
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult to tell. As a foreman, I'd say no. They all love it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep coming, please.
There was
yeah.
no conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's start getting into like the other side of it, right? So
Yep.
you're doing tree planting for all this time, did foremanning for, so this is what, it was 5 years planning, 5 years as a foreman.
Yep.
And then you went back to school for forestry,
Yep.
right? Did your bachelor's.
Yep.
And then so obviously when you were doing that, you probably had a direct connection. Like, I want to get into the silvicultural side. So you're probably talking with the silvicultural forester as a
Yep.
foreman, probably wanted to get more into that role. So what made you want to go from foreman to go into the larger scale planning?
Yeah. So when I did a degree in microbiology, and I had some plans to go to medical school and stuff. And by the time I was done that degree, my motivations had changed, and I didn't want to do that anymore. And I wanted to keep planting. So I went back after I graduated and planted for a summer, and then sort of hit the end of my rope as far as planting goes. But I realized I had put my actual life off in because I wanted my summer job to keep going.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
Your actual life, right? Because as if tree planting wasn't an actual life, but it's not I understand what you're saying. It's not a permanent career job that you can do.
I basically took a winter off with the, just because I wanted to go back planting again. I thought, like, it's not good to kind of just hang around for 9 months and work for 3 months. So for some reason,
psychologically, you mean, kind of? Is it just hard to
practically?
Yeah, just doesn't work for it.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense, right? So, and then for some reason, my whole planting career, I'd never even considered going into forestry. And when it clicked for me one winter, and I applied to forestry, and I realized that I could just make my summer job my real job, just do it all the time. So, and that sort of coincided with sort of hitting my rope at. Hitting the end of my rope for being able to plant. Like, I just didn't quite have the motivation to go. A lot of my crew was aging out of they'd all finished their degrees, and people were moving on. So I started looking at either sort of starting all over, like I was going to lose most of my core of planters. So, and I just, my last season, I sort of, it takes a certain amount of drive to really be performing at the best, and I could feel I didn't have it necessarily.
You were over it.
So I was just over
ready
it.
for the next thing.
Exactly. So I went to school and got a couple different summer jobs doing different forestry work, and I'd always wanted to go into silviculture and work on the other end, just to stay involved in not just planting, but like my interests in general had grown a lot. I'd grown a lot more interested in just the natural world and the natural sciences and ecology and stuff. So
cool.
It worked all, it went hand in hand. It really went perfectly for me. So
for sure. So did you find, because you were saying that your entire planning career, you didn't really think a lot about forestry.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're doing forestry, right? Like you're literally in the middle of it, a huge part of it, a necessity. Do you find is there a bit of a cognitive dissonance there in the planting community from the forestry community? Is there, you know what I mean? Is there like philosophical differences in the way they're viewing things?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of planters don't there's, usually you'll have a camp of 50 planters and 5 foremen and a camp supervisor, all managed by one, it'll be 1 or 2 checkers or foresters from the mill that oversee them. And, that's you're not in camp with them. They're
not living with they just show up during the day and take off and go home at night.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's pretty limited, and just by necessity you don't get a chance to meet everybody even, and when you do see them, you just talk about what's going on planting wise, and that's pretty much it. So a lot of planters don't really know anything about the forestry requirements. They don't realize that it's part of that this is all due to some, government or like legal requirement necessarily. They're just
an ecological requirement.
Yeah,
really
well,
is the but yeah.
the specifics of why this species has to go there or anything. It's just you just do what they're told,
Think
and
about it,
they're the boots on the ground more so. And I think a lot of planters who are of the bohemian sort, don't really think that they're have a fairly negative view of the forest industry. Like
they don't.
They do.
Yeah, okay,
yeah. That they're like, I'm out here because it's money and it's a lifestyle I like, but they sort of see it as being part of a cog of a big machine that they don't even agree with, right?
That's what I was kind of getting at. Is like, is there that cognitive dissonance, right, where they're just kind of not, or maybe it's not dissonance because they're aware of it, right? But they're willfully ignorant of or willfully unaware, I guess, of what's actually going on. Because it's really easy to look at the corporation and go, this big black corporation entity got to stay in the black and keep the profits up. But it's easy to do that. I think we all do that. I mean, we do it with every other industry, why not forestry, right? So it's
and as a planter, you really see all you are in all day is the worst stage, right? The ugliest stage.
The ugliest stage,
right?
For
all
sure.
you're in is slash and you just stumps, right? That's all you see. You plant trees and that's it. And you think like, oh, we're planting monocultures or whatever. That's a fairly common refrain these days. Is that? And
that's something I wanted to get. Let's just get into that right now.
Sure.
Actually, that's part of it. And I want to get into the step-by-step process of how silviculture works and how you decide what to plant, where, and why. Right. But like the whole monocultures thing is something that I think you hear everyone. I see it in social media all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Like our forest industry plants this monoculture. It's a fire hazard. It's homogeneous and not representative of the natural world, right?
Yeah.
Where you and I both know that's not true. Like depends on what you mean by monoculture, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to not say it because I'm going to try and get your perspective. Okay. But so why would there be a monoculture? Let's start with that. Why would we be only planting one species? And when I say monoculture, they're not. In a previous episode, I addressed the fact that when we plant one species, they're not clones of one another. They're genetic variants. There's local species or local genetic variants that have been planted. So there's lots of different genetics on there. It's not one genetic like you do in a agricultural situation or something like that. So it's a monoculture in species only.
Yeah, they're not soybeans, but
it's not soybeans. So why would we go about planting like a monoculture?
Yeah, well, for the most part, what was harvested is a lot of single species stands out here, at least. So, typically when you log, you don't log across
different stand types.
Yeah, a ton of different stands, right? You go in and log like, especially here where we basically have pine and aspen growing on the upland sites, and then you get down into the swampier sites and you'll have a spruce mix and some poplars or tamarack or birch. So you generally cut blocks work out to be more they're dominated by one species, right? So it does make sense to plant more or less what we aim for is that we do plant what's there. It's not block by block that we necessarily manage it, but
the intention is to have whatever is being removed at the same species is being put on the landscape so that we can maintain that biodiversity of habitat across the forest management area.
Right? So it's balanced at the whole area level. So
but I mean, if you're planting pine and only pine in a block, chances are there was only pine growing there. There's a reason you're not planting aspen or spruce or black spruce or whatever. It's because so it's not like they're choosing like this is the fastest growing, we're going to plant this because this and this. They're planting it because they have selected it for growth. That's part of it, but it's selected for growth from that seed zone, and it's like that's what's going there because that's what's ecologically supposed to be there. If spruce is supposed to be there, then spruce would have been there, right? Nature would have done that. So we're just trying to follow what nature has set up for us, right?
Yeah, and there's typically the land and the terrain and the topography is going to limit what you even can grow, right? You probably could get something else to grow, but if you got a nice, well-drained site that's on the drier side, your if you planted two species of spruce in there, they'd die, right? It's too dry for them. So what's going to grow is pine. So we're going to go plant pine, and then same in wetter areas, we're going to be in there planting spruce because it's too wet for the pine. So the pine's going to die. So you're limited by what will grow for one thing, and then you get we have to have something grow there, right? Is the basic thing. So
right,
we do more or less whatever it takes to get stands regenerated is what we do. Yeah.
Well, like you were saying before, there's a legal responsibility, but there's an ecological and moral responsibility to ensure that if we're going to remove this fiber from the landscape in wood form, then we have to make sure that we replace that, right? Because that's what would happen naturally. And what happened, in the 70s is a lot of times we wouldn't reforest anything. We would cut it and leave it for natural. And sometimes they'd come back and sometimes they wouldn't for various reasons, right? Yeah. So now we have a system in place that forces us to make sure that whatever is removed is replaced and the same species on the same site. And Mother Nature knows best, right?
Yeah.
The reason pine is there is because that's the best place for pine to be.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
Spruce would be outcompeted, aspen wouldn't make it, and whatever, right? So it's weird though that people look at it and go, "Oh, this monoculture, it's so gross," as if it's unnatural.
Yeah.
But that's what would have been there anyways.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, when you and we only plant, we're only planting pine or we're only planting spruce, but there's a lot of natural, right? We don't have to plant aspen because if there was any portion of aspen in the stand, we're going to get aspen suckering. And when you go into those blocks at year 5 and year 10 doing, when we go in for surveys, they're definitely not monocultures, right? Like there's no matter what we do, they're not going to be monocultures. There's lots of different species growing. So
yeah, no matter what you do, it's like sure when you plant and everything's been disturbed, you only have those seedlings that have been put there, right?
Yeah,
but yeah, so like you said, there's a seed bed, so there's seeds in the ground. Those are going to pop up. If there was any kind of deciduous, whatever, those deciduous often pop up from the roots in the ground, which aren't dead after harvesting. They're fully alive, right? Even after you spray it, those roots don't die, right? They'll come back after 10 or 15 years when the situation is improved, right? And when they're able to come back, right? From a bunch of different reasons. But it's interesting but nobody looks at that, right? Nobody looks at that 10, 15, 20, 30 years later, when even 30 years later, the stand is still in a juvenile stage. Like it's still just getting into a stem exclusion.
Yeah.
They're not mature again until 80 at the very minimum. So it's interesting to see that we judge that way because, like you said, that none of them come back as a monoculture. There's going to be other stuff in there, especially understory shrubs and growth. Like that is all fine. That's going to bounce back in no time, right?
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting problem. Like it's just easy to say monoculture and people go, "Ooh, monoculture, gross," right?
Yeah.
It's a good headline, I guess.
Yeah. Another issue would be that we, as part of the balancing process, we do still do natural regen. If we, whenever we have, because natural regen is very cost effective. So if we have sites that can be dragged, or we do some seeding as well. I
have the actual numbers here. I brought it up from a little while ago. Actually, from the episode I did with Vic, I was listening to that, and he mentioned it. 2017 in Alberta, we cut 96,000 hectares of wood. 63,000 of that was planted, and 33,000 of that was left for natural.
Yeah,
and that means that not left for natural, like we're going to leave it and it's a grassland now. It's like no, it's left for natural because it was deemed to be capable of coming back naturally, not needing any support, and it provides a more quote unquote natural means of regeneration, right? And we double check this, right? Like we were constantly back there making sure that this is actually true, because if it's left for natural and we go back 14 years from now and it's not actually there the way it's supposed to be, then we have to go in and replant and make sure that it comes back the way it's supposed to. So.
There really isn't any deforestation in Alberta, right?
Not from the forest industry anyways, but from municipalities expanding and that kind of stuff there is, or from mining, there's deforestation.
In forestry, there's really no way for us to end up with blocks that are totally unproductive. So
we would get your ass held to the fire if you did that. Like you'd be in so much shit. Like even if you wanted to do it from just say you were a greedy person, you were trying to do the bare minimum, you still can't screw it up that bad because you'll get reprimanded. But
the whole system is designed around that. So and that's one thing that planters don't. We don't have planters go through drag blocks, and we don't have planters go through blocks that are coming back to aspen, right? That are 50,000 stems a hectare, and after 2 years you can't walk through them.
Yeah.
Because they're absolute dog hair. So so they as planters they typically only see the blocks that are going to be planted.
Blocks,
for sure.
Right, like we're not planting aspen really.
Yeah, for definitely. So that's probably part of it, is that they don't see any of the other sides of it, and then it's just it's busy, it's hard work, right? Maybe that's something that that the mills could do a little better, is try to explain some of the higher level stuff to the planters when they're out there, but they're also not really like, everybody's there to go to work, right? We have a kind of limited time, and they're not really out to have an educational experience either. So
no, they just want to do their work, enjoy their time, eat their edibles, and go home later.
The food game is a massive part of it. And the food in planting camps is generally very good. And when I was planting, it was always, the guidelines were like for 6,000 to 8,000 calories a day was
probably barely enough to keep
what the cooks were supposed to be handing out. So it's a pretty massive
But you burn that though.
Definitely. And you're losing weight for sure. And it was a hard early in the season, especially as a returning vet, when you know what you're supposed to be doing and you have the skill to go fast and work hard right away. It's difficult to eat enough. Like you're not used to just shoveling in food, and even later in the season when
it becomes a chore, not an enjoyment.
And then especially later in July when it's hot and all day, and then even in the evening when you're eating supper, it might still be 20 some degrees, right? And you're more thirsty than hungry, right? You'll see people very grimly sitting and just going back for seconds and shoveling in food because they know that they got a big day tomorrow and they need the cows, right? But it was always struck me as funny. People just like looking out, like staring absolute daggers at a big piece of lasagna and just taking their fork with the force of will and just shoveling in food because you don't have the appetite necessarily, right? Working hard in hot weather all day is pretty suppresses your appetite, and then
becomes part of the work. It's part of your job.
It really is. You
don't want to do it, you have no choice.
Eat that cake.
That's funny. That's awesome. Okay, let's dive into kind of how the silvicultural process works. So I'll just let you go from there. Like how does that start? Right? Is that pre or post cut block?
So at Blue Ridge, where we do mostly post-harvest prescriptions. So that's stage one, is some sort of prescription. So going in and seeing
those post-harvest though, after it's cut.
Some places do pre-harvest as well. And pre-harvest you can even just get from the AVI and the eco site, right? You see what kind of trees are growing there. It gives you a decent idea of what's gonna. And we
have so much digital data now, right? Kind of have a general idea of where the water table is going to be, whether or not you're going to need to do certain things, and
So you can definitely ballpark it just looking at this is a white spruce aspen block. What what you're going to get when you harvest, right? You're going to get a ton of aspen growing back, and when it's pine, black spruce, you have a pretty good feeling that this is going to be a fairly swampy block that's the water table is going to come up as soon as we harvest, and that's going to be our main limiting factor, right? So you get that kind of idea, but generally your prescription starts out and you go in and look at if it needs to be planted, what silvicultural technique is going to get us regenerated. The most cost effective. So
what are the options there? Let's talk about those options.
Yeah. So we can do some kind of,
assuming you go into a place and you got a place that's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's not ready. It's like some places, I imagine a lot of places you go into, you cut it and you're just like, it's ready to be planted, right? It needs to be planted. It's ready to be planted.
Right.
But let's say you go in, it's imperfect, it's marginal. You need some kind of site preparation.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a decision tree style, process, right? Like you tend to start off and the first thing would be like, is this going to regenerate naturally?
Mhm.
So was it a block that was half, if it's half standing aspen, you are fairly certain this is going to explode in aspen. And that might be all you need, right? So there's that. There's, if it's not going to regenerate naturally, then we are going to be looking at, can this be, could this just be dragged, or could it be?
So basically drag. So I guess I should explain why aspen. So aspen naturally comes back by itself really, really, really thick in most places.
It suckers from the roots. Yeah. So as soon as you kill the tree, a standing tree, it sends up a lot of suckers, like hundreds or thousands per stump, more or less, and it grows aspen whips. Like they grow really thick, and they come back aggressively on their own. So if a block was, we're a conifer mill, so we don't necessarily log a lot of high aspen blocks, but we do sell aspen as well. And sometimes you get nice blocks that have quite a bit of conifer volume, but are still deciduous blocks. So those you can be, relatively certain that they're going to come back
for sure
as deciduous blocks on their
that's
own.
Probably the majority of those, like 33,000 hectares that were left for natural in Alberta in 2017, just because they
would be
mostly aspen, and you don't need to do anything because they'll come back.
And
by
they
themselves.
would probably were logged by deciduous mills, right?
Yeah, by tenure yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So they have it easy. If the one man sylv department that goes out and it's gonna grow back on its own. So
if they're lucky enough to find a pure deciduous stand, which is
a little tricky.
It's trickier now. I think we used to think that we had a lot of pure deciduous stands. There's not a lot anymore with leaf off imagery and better inventories. It's pretty hard to get away with the idea that you have a pure deciduous stand, because there's almost always spruce underneath in a mature stand. But yeah.
So we have a fair amount of site preparation that at our disposal. So we have barrels and chains, or drags, which is like a massive kind of sea anchor chain that's pulled behind a skidder that just disturbs the seed bed. And if you have a pure pine block with good with a lot of cones on it, and good sun exposure, not too thick of duff, and that soil is going to warm up, then you can just drag that thing around, and all the cones will open up, and you'll get good natural regen on your own, or it'll seed from that. So that's one thing we can do. We have trench and seed operations, or we can do aerial seeding as well. Right. So just depending on the site, that can be feasible and can work good. Just a little bit tricky to get the right conditions to make that happen. It kind of depends on the weather in the spring, if it's going to work or not. Probably duff thickness would be our biggest sort of limitation with that. Maybe
the seed needs to hit like soil, not
you got to get it down on the soil. So it would tend to be a site that's,
I think a lot of people would think that like, after you have a cup block, you just have soil, right? Just mineral soil there. Yeah. And the truth is that that duff layer is almost entirely intact unless you're on the road or a skid trail. Yeah. That duff layer of just moss and shrub and whatever other, organic is still there. It's not like you take a bulldozer.
It's definitely not a farmer's field. Yeah. So it's can look fairly untouched. The big, we put down a lot of slash, like the branches will break off of the trees as they're skidded. So you end up with branches and small trees that snap, and dead trees and stuff that are left out in the block. So there's a fair amount of slash there, but typically, especially with winter logging, you'll get most of your forest floor is totally intact out there. So that thick forest, just a conifer seed won't grow on just moss. It has to be making contact with soil. So usually, if it's like a block that has drag type conditions, so it's a fairly dry block with thin duff, but for whatever reason there's no cones, we'll go in with a cedar. We can use seeding. And then other than that, you'll be looking at planting, and then we can do site preparation either because we want to get improved growth from site prep, or we're going to be facing some kind of limitation and straight planting isn't practical. So
sort of those limitations. What are the
so
potential limitations?
the big thing would be a really wet site. So often when you remove the trees, the water table comes up a few inches, and you'll have a site that was previously like wet but mossy will turn into basically swampy, right? And that the water comes up so much that you know just a tree planted wouldn't dry. So we're gonna have to do some sort of raised site to be able to plant there. Really thick duff will make it basically impossible to plant. So when the moss is 4 or 5 inches thick, then
it's hard to get through with a shovel.
Yeah, then your tree, when it's planted there, is either going to be you can either like screefing is kicking or digging, the moss away to get to the soil, and then you're either going to end up with your tree in a hole and you've screefed it away, or the tree is going to be in the soil, but the needles are going to be completely covered by duff. So it's not going to get any sunlight, right? Yeah. So you're going to end up with basically, in our area, it's cold soils are our main limiting factor. So we'll get so any sort of tree planted in a depression for the most part is going to be too cool it's going to have a very limited growing season, and then it might get just desiccation, or it's going to get flooded, or and there's
a million different variations of all of these things. These are just the very basic ideas of what's going on.
In other areas, drought is their biggest limitation, right? If you're like when we planted in Williams Lake, it's all about deep and tight because it gets so dry for all summer there that anything to an inch on the surface is bone dry, and they have such thin duff, it's basically exposed soil, just like a really thin moss layer, right? So so they have almost no protection to actually hold the moisture. So that's their limitation. In the Rockies, if you're on the foothills, winter desiccation was almost the biggest killer. So they're worried about in February when the Chinook comes and all the snow blows away, are your trees going to start growing and then get killed by the next frost? So they're dealing with a totally different.
There's a lot of that going on actually. Sometimes, it's unfortunate, but
So that you have to know what your what sort of your local challenges are, and then for us the huge thing is Calamagrostis. So we're right in the grass belt, so we get
Calamagrostis is a grass,
is a really aggressive grass that grows pretty much any sort of nutrient-rich wet site comes in, just a massive colonizer, and it will, it's a massive water hog. It will totally shade out anything that's smaller, like any sort of seedling that's in thick grass will have a very difficult time growing. The grass gets so thick that it will actually just cause mechanical damage by falling over, and the snow on top of the grass will just basically crush your seedling that's growing there.
That's one of the biggest problems we have in northern Alberta, I know, is the Calamagrostis growing and killing conifer seedlings, and even aspen seedlings, right?
Oh, absolutely, It will, because your aspen needs the soil temperature to come up to a certain temp before it will sucker, and if you get colonized really quickly by grass, you'll have under thick grass, you'll have frost till July. It's amazing.
So we have to really go in there and make sure that those grasses are taken care of, to make sure that the forest comes back the way we want it to come back.
Yeah, exactly. And
for every reason, right?
Yeah, it's not really it doesn't seem, I think some animals will eat Calamagrostis in its young stage when it's first sprouting, but you'll look at a field or well site or something that's got thick, knee-high or waist-high Calamagrostis and really thick, and it doesn't seem to be like very rarely will you don't see moose that just standing out there eating it, right? It's not like a hay crop. It's
we don't have a lot of grazers that would eat that regularly.
Maybe a bison or something would come through and munch on it, but
I'm not even sure. I don't even know. But you don't see a lot of it, right? Like a lot of people will bring in like sheep or something to munch on it while it's like in the green stage, right? But Yeah, it's one of those problems that we have, and that's where like spraying becomes the solution, right?
Yeah. So we can do mechanical site prep for grass.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of our light mounting techniques will be light mounting and then home mounting, which is using an excavator.
Mm-hmm. Just basically building up a little nook where the grass can't get through.
It's a flip. Like the flip is this. So you'll have sort of a sod layer or just that layer of forest floor, and by flipping it over and exposing the mineral soil to the sun, you get a nice planting bed, and then there's 2 layers of grass flipped over onto itself,
right?
And then that doesn't the grass can't come up through that, right?
Just too much distance. So like for people trying to imagine this, is basically if you were to take a shovel, stick it into the ground, pick up whatever you had, and almost like a hinge, just flopping whatever you have on top of the grass. Next to it.
With the what was on the bottom of that hinge pointing up now, so you'll get the dirt on top. So that's a pretty common technique, and it doesn't give you it doesn't last forever. Like grass will grow onto that mound, and a light mound is
gives you a little bit of height too.
It gives you a site that will be warmer and drier. Mm-hmm. It gives you that raised microsite everywhere. So that's a lot of what we deal with, is just trying to make some sort of raised site and then dealing with vegetation competition. So that's and then often you'll go in and do your prescriptions, but we're pretty heavily limited by access as well. So that'll be the other thing you're in there looking at is, if your cut block is behind an ice bridge, then you only have one site prep technique really available, and that's what you can do in the winter, right?
Right.
Because you'll never have summer access into that area. Mm-hmm. So your light mounding, trenching, anything done with a skidder in the summer isn't practical. So you have a ripper plow, which is just a big winged plow that you pull behind cat, which is sort of our only machine that has enough force to work through frozen ground. So that's a lot of times you're sort of limited with.
It's important to point out, I think, though, that like a lot of our operations are done in the wintertime to maintain that soil integrity and reduce compaction and make sure that everything is left as natural as possible. So the ground's frozen and you don't have all that impact.
And it's just sometimes it's totally unfeasible, right? Like there's areas that are just too wet to ever drive a machine in the summer, right? So that's always going to be winter logging. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes the other option is building, you don't have to build roads and bridges that are there all summer, dealing with erosion as well, right? So if you have a river that doesn't have a bridge across it already, then you can just go in and do an ice bridge or a snow fill, and we deal with a lot of winter roads where in the summer they're nice grassy lanes, like zero erosion issues at all, and then come winter they're bladed out in their highways again. So
no, for sure. I think one of the big ones that people get freaked out about is like herbicide, right? Is spraying and that kind of stuff. And that's another one where they say they look and they go, look, a monoculture, right? And they ring that monoculture bell of saying like, oh, well, we had this aspen forest and now we just have a spruce forest or whatever, right? Yeah. Or a pine forest even. That happened. Like people think that too, right? And at least for me, the only reason that would really happen is if you had a mixwood, right? Like your mature forest that was cut down was an aspen spruce mix or an aspen pine mix, and now you've got to make sure that this conifer has a chance to get to a stage where it's going to survive before the aspen comes back on, right? Because the aspen, even though you might have a block, you might spray the block. If that was an aspen stand and there was aspen in there, after it's sprayed, about 10 or 15 years after it's sprayed, and all the stems that were sprayed rot off and fall over, you're going to have suckering again, no matter what. You can't stop that from happening unless you rip out the roots, which no one ever does because that would be insane. So it's interesting for me to see that people look at that and they go, oh, look, a monoculture, we're getting rid of the aspen. It's like, no, you're limiting it for 15 years or so and then by that time you'll have a spruce or a pine population that's tall enough to survive on its own. The grass isn't in the way and the aspen's not going to outcompete it. And it's hardy enough to survive because, you go back 15 years after that, say 30 years after cut, you're going to have the aspen's going to be taller than the spruce anyways.
Yeah.
Because it just grows so fast.
Yeah.
So it's just providing that step to allow the spruce, because otherwise you're just going to have a pure aspen block, and then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? So it's but it's an interesting problem that I see online again with the spray and all that kind of stuff, right? So
it's definitely controversial. It's people are talking about it a lot, and as far as how we use it, I mean, when we spray, we are planning on getting with grass, we're planning on getting 3 years where the grass is knocked back, and then we know that grass is going to be there again, right?
Yeah.
That's the best we can hope for. That's not like out of the ecological kindness of our hearts. It's that's the physical limitations of spray, right? That's what you get. So those blocks are not brown forever. It
doesn't permanently kill everything. It just stops the action by which
it knocks it back, and then with aspen, that's part of where when you do spray for some aspen, and there's probably been a little bit of maybe not a mistake, but ideally, because I guess let's just go back a step, but the prescription stage, you are also doing declarations at that point. So you're basically saying what this block is, what it should come back as, like what classification it is. And that's governed by your balance. So in your management area, you have basically you have to put back what you harvested within, there's a little bit of wiggle room, but it's not block by block or hectare by hectare. It has to be exactly what was growing there, because you do get situations where this was a pine stand, but it was pine that was growing in really wet ground with a black spruce understory, and once it's logged, it's only going to come back as black spruce, right? That's all you're going to get to grow there again. So
you're beholden to the limitations of
exactly.
the ecology.
So
right?
you do get some wiggle room with what you do, but it all has to balance across your management area. So you get some of the older management systems, or the older management plans, the FMPs we have, you only balance to conifer, deciduous conifer, and conifer deciduous, right? So there's 4 classes you balance that way.
It's pretty basic for a long time, right? We've only just recently gotten to a place where we have regeneration standards at all. In the last 20 years, right? It's only 1998. So I don't think how we're doing it today is set and done, right? We're constantly changing.
Yeah. So
right?
and a lot of the new, so we work in 4 or 5 different management areas, right? We do Hinton, Slave Lake, Weyerhaeuser, and ANC's FMA as well. So we're working under a lot of different rules, and it seems like a lot of the newer management plans that are coming in are balancing to those 4 categories, but then also balancing to species. So we're doing spruce, like conifer spruce, conifer pine, conifer black spruce, DC spruce, DC pine, CD pine, CD spruce.
Being conifer deciduous, just for those.
Yeah.
So C is conifer, D is deciduous. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah. So it gives you and a conifer declaration is, means you have to get to 70% of the block stocked conifer and 80% of the block stocked stocked minimum. Other than that, it's not sufficiently regenerated, and you have to go in and do some sort of treatment. For sure. To try to get it back. So even a conifer stand for us is might be 30% deciduous, right? So you get it might be have 50% of it or 80% of it might be deciduous, but it has to have at least 70% of the area has to have growing conifers in it, right? So you can't have big areas of all deciduous, and then your deciduous conifer and your conifer deciduous are mixed wood stands where there's minimums on both, so you have to get 50-30 or 70-30.
It's all balanced out. We're trying to. The point is, the system that we have now is that we're trying to get, like you said, over the management area. You're trying to get back growing on the landscape what you remove from the landscape.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that's kind of and there's lots of arguments against that way of doing it, right? Maybe there should be a more of a natural successional pathway to do it, right? So
yeah, that would be the argument with when you go in and log a white spruce forest, right? It's like, should we be regenerating it back to what it was, because that is probably 180 years into the process. It's been through its whole aspen stage, and then the white spruce has come up through the canopy and is now the cover, and there's what's left of the aspen is maybe second or third generation of aspen that's actually died and grown up, but it's become only a small portion. So when we go in and harvest, I mean
as it stands now, we're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, we've more or less settled on not doing don't really do stand conversion at any sort of.
Well, and it's for good reason too. It's because we're still, the science is still catching up to, like, theoretically we can all go, yeah, that sounds like a more natural, holistic way to do it. Yeah. And it's easy for us to, like you and I, to sit here and get on board with it and go, yeah, that sounds good. I like that. But we need to make sure that the science is behind it before it's applied, right? So it's one of those things that I think people, they get on top of that wagon and just kind of get excited about it and say, why aren't we doing it this way? And it's like, well, because we have to do our due diligence and make sure that makes sense, right? Because like we said, sure, with harvesting, we're trying to emulate natural disturbance and trying to get back to the, pristine, in quotations, wilderness, right? The natural world without human beings, or whatever you want to call it. But the truth of the matter is, harvesting isn't that, right? Harvesting isn't a burn. It's different. So do we follow the same successional pathways that, quote unquote, Mother Nature would do, or is there a different way to do it? I don't know. And I don't think anyone really knows. We're all just kind of going through this. Yeah. I think the point is we're constantly evolving how we do this, changing, trying to find better ways. And like one of the best arguments I've heard for like getting rid of spray and just not spraying because it freaks the public out, right, is starting to do more understory protection. Yeah. Right, which is a natural means of keeping aspen from suckering, right? So you remove 60% of the aspen in order to, and then you leave some of it on there, and you try and keep all of the understory spruce alive, and that should keep aspen from suckering and keep you from needing to spray, because the spruce is there and it'll pop up. But politically and like legislatively, we haven't quite gotten there. But it doesn't mean we won't go there. Yeah, right?
Yeah, it's funny. We almost have a bit of the regulations are so, I think, coming from the days of there being like a lot of total failures in regeneration.
That's just it. There was a lot of it.
We've come from the point of the regulations right now almost handcuff you into doing something. Like, so even if you have a harvest system where you're saying like this is going to come back by seed or whatever, you end up with it becomes difficult to do that, because right now the rules are to stop people from walking away from blocks that are going to fail, right? So they're very like,
forcing
you to get in there and do something. Yeah, we do have like a leave for natural designation, which is considered a treatment, but it's you classify an area and it means you're going to do nothing because you're expecting it to sucker or that there's.
But if you leave for natural and it doesn't sucker, then you're on the hook to reforest.
Yeah, exactly. So, similar to if you'd planted and all the trees had died. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an interesting dynamic that people.
Because I know there have been some areas where they've done some understory protection, and they're having difficulty with the like where that block can be classified, right? Because they're saying, oh, this block is stocked. Look, we can go in here with a plot cord and we're getting advanced regen. We're getting 16-foot or 20-foot tall spruce in here all over, and this block is stocked. We should be able to walk away. But under the current regulations, they're saying, well, that doesn't count. You got to reforest this, right? Yeah.
It's a tough one, because definitely. It's like, I think.
And you can see that if you said, okay, well, if the trees are there, then you're going to get people going in and just high grading blocks, and leaving a bunch of stunted trees behind, and saying, oh, well, this is stocked, right? So you get sort of a, but yeah, I mean, I think the evolution of it is going to be one way, and then at the end of the day, it is not, we want to be scientific, but a lot of what we do is based on public opinion and what's politically feasible, right? So
Totally.
if it becomes completely unfeasible to spray, then
we will. Oh, totally.
That's the way it goes.
It's not the only way to do it. It's just the
Nope.
way that we have been doing it, and we've proven that it's safe to do it that way, and it's okay. But if it ever turns out that it's not, I think the forest industry would be the first ones to drop it, right?
That's,
and find a
that's
new
what
way.
I've been hearing, which
So-
always strikes me as funny because the trees don't go into anybody's bread.
Yeah.
So
But I think it's
but it's a public land thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's on public land that it's
for sure.
it's so much more scrutinized. But
Well, and I think
nobody has to
the
eat
individual
those.
forester, like the individual person, maybe not the industry, the company itself, but the individual person, we're not really interested in what's in the company's best interest. We're interested in what's in the public's best interest, which is what we're beholden to, right?
Yeah.
That's our as a regulated professional, right? That's our job. Our number one priority is to the public. Period. Not to the industry, not to our own job or whatever. It's to the public to make sure that we're doing what's right for them, and then we can do our work and get our paycheck, right? But I think I think that's true of almost all, and where people get lost is when they get caught up in the job aspect of it, right? But I think the problem here is that we've the industry itself, and even just researchers and everyone's thinking about these things, right? And the human mind and our thoughts move so much faster than bureaucracy does, right? So we're 50 years ahead of where the policy is, right? And we're like, well, we need to change. It's like, yeah, but it takes like we've created the system that takes decades to change. So we know that, we understand it better than most, and it's going to take time to get there. And we have to prove that the changes we're going to make are going to be realistic and the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, it's taken us like it wasn't until '98 that we had regeneration standards. I think it was '98, and at the time when that came in, and even to this day, people are still super pumped about that because it's totally changed. It's taken us from an unsustainable standpoint to a completely sustainable standpoint, right?
Yeah.
So it's world renowned as being a good way to do it. And now we're challenging it again, which is good. I think we need to continue to challenge it and make sure that we can prove concept and defend what we're doing so that we know we're doing the right thing and not just tooting our own horn, right? So
Yeah.
No, it's an interesting problem to have. It's one I want to try and get somebody on to talk about it. Maybe Vic.
Right.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Somebody who's willing to put their neck out there and go,
Yeah,
what do you think about
that'd be the big
changing
challenge.
everything?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and our regeneration standards here are fairly progressive, and in Canada at least, as far as in comparison to the older free to grow standard, right, which is makes any sort of mixed wood almost completely impossible.
Yeah.
Because like you'll have a beautiful. When I was in BC, we were doing these free to grow surveys, and have a beautiful tree, pine or spruce tree growing and just healthy, ready to go, and there'd be one stunted alder, within a meter of it that's, you can tell it's no threat at all, but according to the rules, that tree is not free to grow, right? Because it couldn't have any competition within a meter, within 2/3 of the height. So
right.
they wanted those trees to be like out in the open, nothing around them, no competition, growing. So in that circumstance, and that's why in BC they're, as soon as you go into a block that's got 30% or something aspen proponent, even one that's not a threat to overtake it, it's thinned out kind of on its own, and it's a nice healthy thing. That's where you're firing up the brush saws and going in there and cleaning all those blocks. Whereas here we do have a lot more flexibility to call an aspen and a spruce growing in the same plot is not a fail, right? It's just, it's both. So
it's a natural stand. It's coming back. It's growing well. There's no problems. The biodiversity's there. We're not concerned about it's all good. So it's an interesting one for sure. Yeah. Well, we've been talking for an hour and 30 minutes.
Oh,
so let's just tie it off.
Sure.
Finish it off with something simple. What do you like most about your job? What do you hate about your job?
I like where I am right now. I basically do silviculture in the summer and operations in the winter. So it gives me a really nice level of diversity.
So you get to see the trees fall and get to see the trees grow back.
Yeah. I do reclamation. I do site prep. I do spray. I do planting. So lots of different stuff. And it's also a really nice variety of doing stuff all on my own, right? I'll be heading into prescriptions this next week. So those are nice long days of hiking, lots of solitude. So those days are nice for, recharging the brain. And then you also get nice, you get jobs where you're working with, like just came off the plant where I was supervising, 50 or 60 people and a lot of moving parts and a lot going on and working the crazy schedule.
Lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
Some bad stuff.
It's got lots of diversity. Well, I mean, the diversity is stuff I like and stuff I don't like, right? So I'm still just coming from silviculture. Probably the ops world is a lot different and just burning diesel and doing the diesel and iron thing is not what comes naturally to me, right? So it's interesting, but just dealing with crusty cat operators and this and that, right? That's not really my world. So it's an interesting challenge, but I would say that some of those days where you're just dealing with these guys that are out there at 4:30 in the morning and complaining about this and that and like all those limitations are stuff I'm not used to because I've really come from the foot powered side of the industry.
Right.
So just saying, when we hit one little creek and that derails everything, a creek that's not on the map, that drives me crazy because I come from the world of just like throw down the logs, start hiking, do whatever you got to do to get back there. And with operations, it's everything grinds to a halt. It's like
you got to make sure that everything is environmentally sustainable, and it's tough when you're pushing a 10,000 pound machine through the bush.
Yeah. It's got.
What do they weigh? I don't even know. They got more than that probably.
Oh yeah, there's what 40 or 50 tons probably.
Yeah, because I mean my truck is I think 8,000 pounds. So it's got to be. I don't even know. That shows my bias of what I know about harvesting.
So it's interesting to deal, and some of the operators are great, and it's interesting to hear them talk about. I've learned lots about. I definitely thought that like, if you're in a cat, like you are good to go. You're a tank. You can go anywhere, and turns out you can't. Some stuff they don't like at all, and some stuff that I thought would be a big issue is not an issue for them at all. So.
Yeah, it takes a skilled operator, man, to do this job, right? There's a lot of it takes a long time to learn how to do that. It's a skilled labor, just like anything else, right? Some people might think of it as not, but no, we need those guys, right? Those skilled laborers they know exactly where to and where not to drive a piece of machinery or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely. And I guess probably the biggest the thing that's the most frustrating that I don't like the most is when there's these communication issues that derail a good plan. Okay. So we'll go, I'll get to a nice block and I'll be walking around doing a prescription and think like, oh, this is going to be the perfect light mount block. And then on my way out, I realized that they pulled this bridge or there's a skid crossing there that they pulled. And then, and it derails the whole plan. And you realize that whatever you want to do is, so that's like, and there's just so many moving pieces.
So
and there's
miscommunication between operations and silviculture?
Yeah, between different departments and...
even in small mills
it's not a huge office, but everybody's got their own... they've all got their own requirements that they're working under, and they might just... If it's a high risk crossing or something, like it's on an incline and, they can't leave it till winter. They can't leave it till spring. They got to get it out it reclaimed before
similar problems to everyone, right? Like it's just that miscommunication, and let's all be better at our jobs and this will go smoother for everybody.
Yeah, and it's just like, you want to just hear about everything and go deal with everything, but it's so that's the big challenge, I think.
For sure.
Is that
would you recommend the way you did your life, would you recommend the tree planting into management into silviculture to people?
I think people would. I think there's a lot of it would be. I thought
it's a good way to do it. I thought
forestry was was a great program. It was a lot of fun. So if I was I would. Like I said, planters don't even realize that there's a whole industry that is out there looking for people.
For people that are environmentally
interested in the environment and want to learn about
sustainability, and they want to see a green future, right? That's forestry. That's what it is, right? But it's easy to look at. I think the name forestry throws a lot of people off, right?
Yeah, maybe.
They think logging. They think pillage the landscape, and that's about it. So it's unfortunate, but I think pretty much everybody you talk to in the forest industry is going to be green minded. They want to see sustainability for all values forever, right? And we're just figuring that one out. So cool, man.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. Any final thoughts?
No, I don't think so.
I think we covered
That's
the
great.
gamut.
Yeah. So nice
Awesome.
long chat.
Yeah.
Be happy to come back if you got another topic.
Oh, it's always. Hundreds of them. Yeah. Thanks a lot, man. This is great.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for listening, guys. I hope you liked that. I just wanted to get Wilson in to talk about tree planting and silviculture and trying to tie that whole thing together. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Wilson's a great guy. I really enjoyed talking to him. So that's it for this week. Remember to rate and review, subscribe, tell a friend. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best, and we'll see you next time. Take it easy.